You know that feeling, right? When you get some feedback, maybe on work or something you made, or even just something you said online,
Oh, yeah.
and it just kind of stings a bit, even if maybe they meant well.
Totally. It can really knock you off balance sometimes.
Well, today we're going to dig into that. Why does it happen, and how can we handle it a bit better?
Exactly. We're looking at criticism from, well, all sorts of angles. We've got some research on motivation, some thoughts on dealing with, online comments.
The fun stuff.
Yeah. And also, importantly, how to spot the feedback that's actually useful,
Mm.
like the stuff that can help you improve.
Right. So the idea is to give you some practical ways to understand why criticism hits us like it does, figure out how to manage that first, like, gut reaction,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe find the good bits, the stuff you can actually use to grow.
Yeah. Trying to make it all make sense,
Oh,
basically.
okay, cool. So where should we start?
Let's maybe start with the psychology behind it. There was this really interesting study, a meta-analysis actually, looking at negative feedback and something called intrinsic motivation.
Intrinsic motivation.
Yeah,
That's like when you do something just because you love it, right? Not
yeah,
for a reward or anything.
exactly that. It's that inner spark, the pure enjoyment of the activity itself.
Gotcha. So how does negative feedback mess with that?
Well, that's the tricky part. See, negative feedback can be super helpful. It can teach us, show us where to improve, help us perform better,
Sure.
but it can also really undermine our confidence. And yeah, it can definitely chip away at that intrinsic motivation.
Which is important, you said.
Oh, hugely important. Research links it to better learning, feeling good overall, our social and emotional well-being, all that stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's hard to stay excited about something if you keep hearing you're, like, not getting it right.
Absolutely. So this research compared negative feedback to other kinds. And one interesting thing they found was uh, compared to getting no feedback or just neutral feedback,
Yeah.
negative feedback didn't make a huge difference to that intrinsic motivation, that enjoyment factor.
Oh, okay.
But it did tend to lower people's perceived competence. Like it made them feel less capable.
Ah, so it might not stop you enjoying it, but it makes you doubt yourself.
Pretty much, yeah. And then when they compared negative feedback to positive feedback, well, that was clearer.
I bet.
Negative feedback had a much bigger negative hit on both intrinsic motivation and feeling competent compared to getting praise.
No big surprise there. It always feels good to hear something nice.
Right. But what's really useful is that the research broke down different types of negative feedback.
Okay, like how?
Well, they looked at how subtle differences in the feedback changed the impact. For instance, was it instructional or not?
Instructional, meaning it tells you how to fix it.
Exactly. Feedback that gives you specific pointers on how to improve versus feedback that just says, nope, that's wrong.
Right.
And guess what? The instructional kind actually tended to have a positive effect on intrinsic motivation.
That totally makes sense. If someone just says, this is bad, you're stuck. But if they say, this isn't quite working, maybe try this,
Yeah,
then you've got something to work with.
precisely. Like the study gave examples. Non-instructional might be, your result wasn't very good.
Ugh. Helpful.
Right. Whereas instructional might be something like, a useful strategy here is to look for connections between these points. See the difference.
Huge difference. One just points out the failure, the other offers a path. What other types did they look at?
They also looked at feedback, focusing on effort versus ability.
Okay, like you didn't try hard enough versus you're just not good at this.
Yeah, exactly that. Saying it's lack of effort implies you could do better if you tried harder. Saying it's lack of ability, well, that feels much more final, doesn't it?
Definitely. One feels like you have some control, the other feels like, well, that's just how it is.
Right. It can be really discouraging if it feels like it's about innate talent you just don't have.
So, effort focused is generally better, even if it's negative.
Seems that way, yeah. Keeps the door open for improvement. Then there was task-focused versus process-focused feedback.
Task versus process. Okay, what's that?
Task-focused is just about the end result. That answer's wrong. Process-focused looks at how you got there.
Ah, like the way you calculated this seems off.
Exactly. Or maybe rethink the steps you took here.
Yeah.
It gets you thinking about your method, not just the outcome.
Which is probably more useful for learning, I guess.
Yeah, it encourages you to analyze how you're doing things.
Yeah.
And then perhaps obviously there's how threatening the feedback feels.
Right, the delivery.
Totally.
Yeah.
Is it delivered with some empathy? Maybe acknowledging it's tough, like this didn't quite hit the mark, was something throwing you off,
Okay.
versus something more blunt and blaming, like this is poor, what happened? the tone makes a massive difference in how open you are to hearing it.
Yeah, it's like a coach versus just a critic, isn't it?
That's a great way to put it. And related to that is this idea of wise feedback.
Wise feedback.
Yeah,
Sounds
man.
intriguing.
It is. It's basically feedback that combines really high standards with the clear assurance that the person can meet those standards.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, so it's like, look, the bar is high and this needs more work, but I'm giving you this feedback because I genuinely believe you can get there.
That feels completely different from just, this isn't good enough.
Right. That belief in your potential
Mhm.
is powerful. It makes the tough feedback feel more like a challenge you can rise to, not just a judgment.
It's motivating in a way.
Exactly. And one last distinction they made was about controlling language.
How so?
Feedback that uses autonomy supportive language, like suggestions you might want to consider, or perhaps looking at this could help, tends to land better than really directive language.
Like, you must do it this way.
Yeah, precisely. That have to or must can feel really controlling and kind of shut down your own sense of like ownership and willingness to engage.
It makes you feel less like it's your thing you're improving.
Totally. So the takeaway here is that even when the core message is negative, how it's framed, what it focuses on, the tone, the belief expressed, all that stuff massively impacts how we receive it and whether it actually helps.
Okay, that's super useful for thinking about giving feedback too, not just receiving it.
Absolutely. Now, should we switch gears a bit to the wild world of online comments?
Ah, yes, the internet. Where nuance sometimes goes to die. Let's talk about haters. What did we find there?
Yeah, we looked at some YouTube discussions and articles on this, and there are a few ideas about why people leave really negative, sometimes nasty comments online.
I'm curious.
Well, one thought is projection. Sometimes people lash out because they're feeling insecure or inadequate themselves. Seeing someone else succeed or put themselves out there can kind of trigger their own stuff. And being negative is like a defense mechanism or a way to feel momentarily better.
Misery loves company kind of thing.
Sort of, yeah. Or maybe envy plays a role. Feeling like they lack something that they see in the other person.
That sounds plausible. It's easier to tear someone down than build yourself up sometimes, I guess.
Sadly, yeah. And we also have to remember that psychological thing bad is stronger than good.
What do you mean?
There's research, Baumeister's work, showing negative events and feedback just stick with us more. They have a bigger impact than positive ones.
Oh, right.
Apparently, he can take something like 5 positive things to counteract the emotional impact of just one negative thing.
Wow, 5 to 1. That explains why one mean comment can totally overshadow 10 nice ones.
Doesn't it just, it really highlights why online negativity can feel so overwhelming sometimes.
So, knowing that, what are some strategies for actually dealing with it when you're on the receiving end?
Okay, so several practical tips came up. One analogy I really liked was from a race car driver, Mario Andretti.
Okay.
He apparently said, don't look at the wall, your car goes where your eyes go.
Oh, I get it. Focus on where you want to go, not the crash barrier.
Exactly. Keep your focus on your path, your goals, what you're trying to do, and try not to get fixated on the negativity at the side of the road.
That's a great mental image. Don't give the negativity your attention.
Right. Another interesting approach was responding with, like, genuine kindness. There was an example with Gary Vaynerchuk,
Oh, yeah.
where he apparently responded really sincerely and kindly to a negative comment, and it actually turned into a positive exchange. It diffused the situation.
Huh. The kill him with kindness tactic. Takes some serious zen, I imagine.
Huh. It probably does. It might not always work, but it's an option. More practically, though, use the tools the platforms give you.
Like what?
Well, on YouTube, for example, creators can hide specific users from their channel so their comments just don't show up for anyone else.
Oh, that's useful.
Yeah, or you can set up lists of blocked words. So comments containing certain offensive terms just get held for review automatically. It gives you some control back.
That's good. Creating a bit of a buffer zone.
Exactly. But honestly, a lot of sources said the best response is often no response at all.
Just ignore it.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Engaging, even to defend yourself, can just feed the trolls, right? It gives them the attention they might be craving.
Yeah, you don't want to reward the behavior.
Exactly. If you do feel you need to reply for some reason, the advice was often to keep it super neutral, very factual, and don't give any indication that their negativity actually landed or bothered you. A non-reinforcing response.
Get the wind out of their sails.
That's the idea. And of course, general filtering tools on social media can help screen out some of the really hateful stuff before you even see it.
Okay, so tools, ignoring kindness sometimes, but mainly focus on your own stuff.
That seems to be the consensus for online hate. Now, moving on from pure negativity,
Mhm.
how do we sort out the helpful stuff, the constructive criticism?
Yes. This is key, isn't it? Because some feedback is valuable. How do you tell the difference? We looked at a Reddit thread on this, right?
Yeah, lots of good insights there.
Yeah.
One of the big differentiators people mention is whether the feedback offers solutions or identifies specific problems.
Okay.
Like, is it just, this is boring, or is it the pacing felt a bit slow in the second half? Maybe you could.
Mm.
That specificity and maybe a suggestion points towards constructive,
So, vagueness is a red flag.
often, yeah.
Yeah.
It's also about perceived intent. Does it feel like the person genuinely wants to help you improve, or are they just trying to tear you down?
Listening to the people who seem invested in your growth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a really crucial point that came up again and again, critique the work, not the person.
Ah, yes. That distinction. You are not your work.
So important. If the feedback feels like an attack on you personally, it's probably crossed the line from constructive.
Right. That helps create that emotional distance we talked about earlier.
Definitely. And you also got to consider the source. Is this feedback coming from someone whose opinion you actually respect in this area?
Good.
Do they even understand what you're trying to achieve? Is it your target audience? Someone mentioned getting harsh feedback from a blogger who just seemed consistently negative about everything. You might need to take that with a pinch of salt.
Yeah, you can't please everyone, and not everyone's opinion carries the same weight for your goals.
Exactly. Trusting your gut a bit comes into play too. Sometimes you just know if feedback resonates or if it feels off base for what you're doing.
So you don't have to act on every single piece of criticism you receive.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's input, it's data, but you're still the one driving. Someone mentioned the sandwich method too.
Oh, yeah, the praise, criticism, praise thing.
Yeah, as a way to deliver constructive criticism more gently. But ultimately, the real goal of constructive feedback isn't just softening the blow. It's about actually improving the work.
Right.
It should give you deltas, as one commenter put it.
Deltas.
Yeah, like things you can actually change or improve, actionable points.
I like that term. Deltas. Okay, so constructive feedback is specific, intended to help, focuses on the work, comes from a relevant source maybe, and gives you actionable deltas.
That sums it up pretty well. Now, building on that, how do we just generally become less sensitive? How do we build that resilience so criticism doesn't floor us every time?
Yeah, how do we thicken that skin a bit, but in a healthy way?
Okay, so we found some great tips here too, again, from Reddit discussions and articles. A really big theme was building self-worth that's separate from external opinions.
How does that work?
It's about knowing your value based on your own efforts, accomplishments, your character, things you respect about yourself. When you have that solid inner foundation, someone else's criticism doesn't feel like it defines you.
It's like having your own internal anchor.
Exactly. It acts as a buffer.
Well,
One person shared feeling like a dumb kid until they started recognizing and respecting their own achievements, and then criticism just didn't hit as hard.
that makes a lot of sense. Build yourself up from the inside.
Yeah. Another practical tip. When you get criticism, ask yourself two questions. Is it true? And is it well-intended?
Is it true? Is it well intended?
Yeah. It helps you analyze it a bit more objectively. Is there actually some truth here I can learn from? And does this person seem like they're trying to help or hurt? It guides your response.
That's a good filter. What else?
Someone shared a great technique, a design engineer. They said they imagine the criticism as being aimed at an object separate from them, like the design itself sitting on the table.
Oh, clever. Creating literal distance.
Yeah. It helps detach emotionally and just look at the feedback on the thing itself.
I might try that one.
Me too. And remembering the criticism is usually about a specific behavior or outcome, not your fundamental identity.
Right. Back to the work, not the person.
Exactly. Focusing on what can I learn or how can I improve from this shifts the focus from feeling attacked to actively learning, viewing all feedback as just data.
Data points to consider.
Yeah, information you can choose to use or discard rather than a personal verdict.
Yeah.
Someone else pointed out the difference between actual criticism and just someone having a different viewpoint. Not every disagreement is an attack.
That's true too. Sometimes it's just a different perspective.
And this was interesting, leaning on parts of your personality or skills that you feel really solid about, like
Yeah.
your unshakable strengths. They can be an anchor when other areas are being critiqued.
Your core strengths.
Yeah. And fundamentally recognizing you control your response. You decide how you feel about it, how you interpret it. That sense of agency is really important.
Taking back the power, in a sense.
Definitely. And environment matters too. Seeking out places work, teams, online groups, where the culture is supportive, where critique is focused on the project, not the person.
Surrounding yourself with good people.
It makes a huge difference. Which leads to the final point.
Yeah.
Lean on your support system.
Friends, family.
Yeah. Especially when dealing with tough criticism or online stuff, talking it through with people you trust can really help you process it and get perspective.
Don't bottle it up.
Exactly. And don't forget about support groups either. They can be really valuable places to share experiences with people who get it, learn coping skills, and feel less alone. There are myths about them, like you have to share everything, but generally they're just respectful spaces.
Okay, so building inner worth, using filtering questions, detaching emotionally, focusing on learning, controlling your response, finding supportive environments, and leaning on your network. That's a lot of good stuff.
It really is. It shows there are lots of ways to build that resilience.
So if we try and wrap this all up, it seems like feedback, good or bad, is just a really complex but unavoidable part of doing pretty much anything.
Yeah, you can't really escape it if you put anything out into the world.
And understanding the why behind it, the psychology, the different types, the motivations, especially online, and also how it's delivered, that all really matters.
It does. And being aware of how it affects us, our motivation, our confidence, that's key too.
But the big shift seems to be trying not to see it automatically as a personal attack.
Right. Trying to reframe it.
Yeah.
See it as information, data points, things that might help you learn or improve or refine what you're doing.
And remembering that ultimately you're in charge of how you process it and what you do next.
Exactly. You have that agency.
Okay, so maybe something for everyone listening to think about this week. What kind of feedback really gets under your skin the most? And just think, what's one tiny thing you could try differently next time you encounter it? Could you take a breath first? Ask a clarifying question like, is it true? Is it well intended?
Or maybe just remind yourself, this is about the thing, not about me.
Yeah, just a small shift in perspective, something to chew on.